Hello, welcome to yesterday's Airlines. It is the 1st of October here in the UK, and NG Models announced their October releases, or at least their October announcements, actually a couple of days ago at the end of September, but they are their October announcements, and they've been getting through their backlog of delayed models quite well, so there's not a staggering amount that is delayed now, and to that end, this set is smaller than some of the sets they've been pushing out recently. In fact, it's almost half the size of some of the sets that they've been putting out, because here we've got 23 models as opposed to the near 40 or so that have been out in some of the previous months. However, whether it's 20 models or 40 models, the diversity of the NG sets is not necessarily improving that much, and I can't say that this set is really getting me overly excited. It is not especially diverse in terms of the type of aircraft that they're putting out, and it is not enormously diverse in terms of the airlines either. In fact, it kind of probably, for me, from my perspective, is one of the worst sets that NG have ever put out. But then I guess that's just me, and there are bound to be people who disagree. But I personally, as I've said many times, would like to be seeing a greater diversity of airlines, and I would also like to see them using some of their molds and some of their releases for classics, because looking through this set, there's barely anything here to get someone interested in, not even classics really, I mean just aircraft that weren't in operation 10 years ago, excited. But there's still some really nice things that have been announced, so we'll get to having a look at those in a few minutes. Obviously, before we do that, please make sure that you've subscribed to the channel and dropped a like on the video. Really appreciate that. So thanks very much to everyone who subscribes and likes the videos. Check me out at Airlines on Instagram and Facebook, as always. Lots of stuff coming up. Got the NG models sample molds coming up for the 737 MAX 7 and MAX 10, plus perhaps more importantly the MD-80 series as well. So those are going to be coming up in the next week and a bit. There's also lots of other cool content as always coming up at the site: reviews, aviation history, wish lists, model news, all that stuff. So keep an eye out on my channels. But let's get on and see what NG are going to be putting out in October, though I'm sure some of these will be delayed over into November as well. We've got 23 models to get through, so let's get on with it. So there's quite a bit of Airbus narrow bodies this month. No A321s though, but quite a few A319s and A320s, and we'll start with those, beginning with a pair of Brazilian Air Force A319s. In fact, it's the same aircraft. FAB 2101, which interestingly is the same registration that a Brazilian Air Force Vickers Viscount once wore. Nerdy fact. Anyway, this is obviously a business jet version for the Brazilian Air Force. They've just got the one of these, and NG are putting out both liveries that it has worn. They're both smart. The older version, what's the word that young people use nowadays? It's basic. The newer version's pretty cool. Basically, it's the older version with this cool sash added to the front of it. So, yeah, they're both nice enough. They're not really floating my boat dramatically because I don't collect military aircraft. But if you do collect military airliners, then in recent times there's been a lot of releases being put out by jcwings and NG. So there's been a lot more choice in this space. And these two would be nice to add to that collection. I mean, they're not exciting me, but I can understand that there's probably a decent call for these. I'm going to put them both into high flyer. Keep those Brazilian fans happy, NG. Next up, we've got a repeat, basically, of what they did in the previous month. And that is, we've got a trio of Chinese A319s. Now, previously they'd released the People's Liberation Army Air Force colours on this trio, same regs, and now they've got the China United Airlines colours, which actually I don't think these aircraft ever operated with China United Airlines as of such, but China United used to be kind of like the face of the People's Liberation Army Air Force before they spun it off as an actual real airline. And so these same 3 Airbus A319s that are now in PLAAF service, more obviously, were in PLAAF services in the colours of China United. And that does look a bit weird because China United have primarily operated the 737 fleet, and these are wearing the current CUA colours. Yeah, once again, obviously I guess NG feel that they do need to release all 3 of these, and there are Chinese collectors out there who want to get all 3 regs. I don't really know why you would, but apparently they do. And I guess from a production standpoint, it's no skin off anyone's nose. You just make a batch and then just change the reg on 2/3 of them. But it isn't interesting, is it? One of them is interesting, and actually I will get one of these because it's Chinese. You know, I like Chinese airliners, but the others, no. So I'm going to put one into high flyer and I'll slip the other 2 off into workhorse, where they're not going to bother anyone particularly. So, of those first 5 releases, arguably none of them have ever flown a fare-paying passenger because they're all military. So the 6th release here is the first airliner, and it is a Delta Airlines A319 N301 November Bravo. And I thought that this would be something that had been made a lot previously, but actually it hasn't really, which is interesting. It's been made twice by Gemini a long time ago. The last version of that release was back in 2014, and it used the really old Gemini era A319 mold, not the current one. I mean, that's not necessarily a bad thing because the jcwings Gemini A319 isn't exactly a wall beater, but the models look very old, mainly because the undercarriage is so old. I don't think it even had rolling gear, that old mold. Aeroclassics has also made 2 versions, which both look pretty decent, actually. So they've made 2 as well, but they were quite a while ago. 2017, I think, is the last time, and 2017, 2018. So quite a while ago, and obviously, as everyone knows, ACs are not made in the same number as Gemini's. Gemini has much larger production runs than Aeroclassics. So is it time for an updated Delta A319? NG think it is, and I think they're probably right. I imagine there's quite a strong need for this, and I know that there have been people crying out for more Delta from NG. I know there's also obviously been some legal aspect to this making Delta models, but NG seem to not too bothered by that. This one, I think, is deservedly supersonic. Real need for it. I think it'll look nice. It's going to be the first kind of truly modern release for a Delta A319. So that's all the A319s, and now we move on to a quartet of American A320s. So you can't argue, if you're a Yankee collector, that NG has not been making plenty of American models. They have, and adding around the edges, I guess, is what I would say to existing releases, but not always in the most exciting way. I mean, the interesting thing is obviously the NG releases typically are really good, but are they so good that you'd replace old ones? Not so sure. Now, the first pair are Alaska Airlines. One is a CEO without sharklets, and it's got the color scheme of the San Francisco Giants, and the other one is a CEO with sharklets in the standard Alaska scheme. Both of these would be more welcome if they hadn't already been announced by Panda Models just recently, and it does really seem like Panda and NG are going at it together. They really are often releasing quite similar things, especially when it comes to TU204s. There's clearly no love lost here between the brands, but it is a bit pointless to release the same thing as each other, and so that makes these a lot less interesting, I would say. The Panda versions aren't out yet, so they might even get the NG ones out beforehand, but do we really need 2 of each of these? Not really. I should also say that the Giant scheme was made by Aeroclassics not that long ago, and that turned out okay as well. So that's the third version, or this will be the third version of the Giant scheme, and the second of an Alaska A320 with sharklets. So not really thrilling me. I'm sure they could do something a bit more interesting with these releases. So from where I'm sitting, I'm just going to put both those in workhorse. Now the next two are Spirit Airlines, and as we know, NG have got this habit of releasing kind of sets of models together. They released 3 or 4 Jetstar A320s now. This is the second and third Spirit A320. The schemes are subtly different. We've got one aircraft which is got the older version of these taxi colours on it. The reg of that one is N648 November Kilo. So that's got the I'm not really sure how to say it. They're funkier Spirit tiles, which aren't solid black. They've got some yellow lines in them as well. It's got sharklets. It's basically exactly the same as the model they made last month, except that this one's got different engines on it. Last month's had CFMs and this one's got IAEs. So yeah, it's a relatively minor change, and it has been made before also by Geminijets, though that was admittedly a long time ago in a land far, far away, and again on an old mould. That was made in 2016. So yeah, that one's not exactly thrilling me. The other one is actually surprisingly unique. It is N697 November Kilo, another A320 CEO, but this one is got no sharklets, and it is wearing the updated version of the scheme with just the block black titles, which it's a very minor difference. So minor I barely noticed it, but and in fact it was pointed out to me by my man Citrus Aviation. I don't really care though, to be honest. No offence to anyone, but it's a really minor difference. I guess if you collect Spirit, then this might make a difference to you. It doesn't make a dramatic one to me, I have to say. But I'm going to put the one which was made before into Workhorse. I'm going to put the one with the wingtip fences and the bold black titles in to High Flyer, because that is technically a unique livery aircraft combo that hasn't been made before. But much like with everything that I've talked about so far, even though I'm putting it in High Flyer, hey, I'm not jumping out of my seat of excitement about it. I'm going, yeah, this is probably worthy of a High Flyer, but yeah, it's not really thrilling me. And kind of to sum up kind of my feeling about these releases this month from NG, the next model is like the most vanilla of aircraft. It's a Level A330-200 ECNRH. Now, Level is just a nothing airline. It's got no reason to exist. It's got the most tedious name. It even sounds boring. Level. And the livery just sucks. So there's just nothing interesting going on here with this airline. Now, that's not NG's fault, but you know, do we really need it? Does anyone really care for it? I know a lot of people wanted Iberia A330s when they saw the hints, and they'd have been better than this, though admittedly the Iberia scheme nowadays sucks as well. There has been one previous release of a Level A330, that was by Aero Classics, looks perfectly good. So this is effectively a second release. It isn't exciting me at all. I'm going to put in Workhorse. I mean, I guess it is kind of unique, but it's not really unique enough. And the airline's so boring. I'm just going to Workhorse. I just don't care at all. I just can't bring myself to even raise any interest in a Level A330. I'm sorry. And so the fact that there are two this month isn't exactly make things great. So the next one is also a Level A330. This one's ECNHM, and this one's wearing a special scheme. And you know that NG loves special schemes, but annoyingly, this special scheme is so different from the standard scheme that it's effectively a new livery, and therefore you're sitting there going, well, they're not saving any design or money doing this, so why are they doing it at all? Because I can't believe anyone really cares about this. Anyway, the special livery is in the colours of someone I never heard of before, but I looked him up. His name is El Majo Pop. He's basically an illusionist from Spain. I don't care. This is a sort of special scheme which is just so vain, because it's just got pictures of this guy all over it going, hey, I'm El Majo Pop, aren't I amazing? And I'm on Broadway. And it's like, I don't care. Don't care. Really don't care. I'm going to put this one in the gas guzzler, not because the mould's bad, obviously, just because it's just a rubbish choice. And there are some special schemes that just don't need to be made. I can't believe anyone collects Level anyway, really, because it's such a tedious airline. But at the same time, this special scheme isn't interesting, and it's on a boring airline. Oh, it's just gas guzzling that one straight away. So that's the Airbuses through this month. Not a lot there to really thrill me. I probably will get one of those China United A319s, but there's a lot more interesting Chinese A319s they could have made than a China United one, frankly. Now we're going to move on to the Boeings, of which there's less than there is Airbus, but there's probably a little bit more diversity here with the Boeings. We start with the only 737 this month, which is a MAX 8. It is registered 9M Lima Romeo Foxtrot. It is in the colours of Batik Air Malaysia, which used to be Malindo. This one will look really nice because the scheme is really nice. The Batik scheme, the Batik Malaysia scheme, has got this really nice tail colours on it. Having said that, it's not the first time this has been made either, and there is quite a lot of this month. This has been made both by Phoenix on a really rubbish version, but also it's been made by Panda Models on a really nice version, which was made a few years ago now, 2017, so 6 years ago, but nonetheless it has been made before, so that makes it a bit less interesting. And again, I'm struggling to get too excited about it. It'll be delightful. I really like the scheme, really like the mould, but I'm still looking at it and going, it's been made before on a equally good mould by Panda. So yeah, I'm just going to work with this one too. That's harsh maybe, but that's what I'm going to do. After all, yeah, it could have been a TriStar, couldn't it? Anyway, next up we've got a pair of 747s. It is the first release of the 747-8i. It's the Boeing Fantasy, which they announced quite a while ago now and have only just kind of announced officially as a release for with a date on it. Previously it was a future release. I've got this model. They sent it to me as part of the Amsterdam Fair display, and it looks awesome. And I have to say that I did kind of suggest to them they might make a Boeing Fantasy 747-8 when they first started making the 747-8. So I'm quite pleased to see this one. I think it looks really, really nice. And I'm going to put this one up in a supersonic. I have to say the mould looks awesome too. The second 747-8 here is a freighter, but again, this one is also a Boeing Fantasy. It's a Boeing cargo version, and this one I'm less certain about because it's not like Boeing really were a big cargo airline. They may have had some cargo services, but it was never a major part of their business, and I don't really feel the need for so many fantasy 747-8s when they could have made a real freighter here. And if they are going to do a fantasy freighter, then surely they should have done like a really cool freight airline. This could have been Flying Tigers, Seaboard World, you know, like proper classic 747 freighters. Hell, they could have even done a FedEx one, though. That would have been rubbish, really. But Seaboard World or Flying Tigers would have been awesome. Flying Tigers with a shark mouth on it, that would have really been excellent. So they would have been better choices, in my opinion. This one, yeah, not really that exciting. And it's obviously been upstaged by the previous release, the last 747-8 that was built, which was an awesome, awesome release. So I'm going to put this one into workhorse. Doesn't excite me, really. Let's kick out some actual 747-8s if you're going to release them. But again, I'd rather you put in a TriStars. So no, not that exciting. We've got only one single 757 this month, and of course it's not a classic, but it is really attractive. It's Argentine Air Force in their current colours. The reg is ARG01, and this one looks really, really awesome. And again, if you're collecting military airliners, then this month's really good for you because you've got those Brazilian A319s and you've got this RG757, and this one looks super duper nice. They've already made an Argentine 757 before in older colours for the Air Force, but this one looks much better and it's got the winglets fitted as well. This is going to be super nice release. Nothing to do with the sort of thing I collect, but I can see this one rocks and I'm going to put this one up. Supersonic. So this is only the third supersonic that we've actually had this month, which isn't a great... considering how good the molds are, only getting 3 supersonics is not particularly good, I would say. And there aren't many more coming, I don't think, either when I look through this list, as you'll see. Next up, we're into the 777s, 3 this month, but again, for airlines that we've seen a lot recently, American Airlines and British Airways. The first one is that American example, N759 Alpha November. It's wearing the breast cancer pink ribbon colours. This one would be more exciting if it hadn't been made in 2018 by jcwings on their new mould, so it's going to be at least as good as this NG version. So this one seems a little bit excessive in the sense that it's kind of made before. I can see why they're making it, but at the same time it isn't exciting me because there's already one out there that's as good as it is. And so yeah, I'm going to workhorse this one. Next up, we've got a couple which I personally think are more exciting, though I can understand why other people might get annoyed by them. They're both British Airways, and they've both been made before. The first one is G Yankee Mike Lima. It's wearing this great Festival of Creativity scheme, which is actually a really nice livery, I have to say. It's got this, it's like a rose, it's like, I think, anyway, it looks really cool. And yeah, it's really nice. It really actually adds something to the BA standard colours, which sometimes they can look a little bit bland. But as I say, it has also been made before. It's been made by Phoenix, but that was quite a long time ago. That was in 2015, it's 8 years ago. And there's no doubt that this version will be better, even though the old version actually does look pretty good. I'm not sure that I'd replace the old Phoenix version if I owned it, and I don't. But I'm sure the new version is good. The next one is G Yankee Mike Hotel, and this one is the Panda Flight version, which has the panda face on the front of it. And this one has also been made before by Phoenix, again, probably around the same sort of time. No, it's 2013, so 10 years ago now. And it was also made by jcwings, but that mould is not the current one. It is the old, not very good one with a cradle mount and such, so that one can be largely ignored. So they were both made a while back, and I'm sure these new NG versions will both look really good. There's an undying demand for British Airways materials, so I'm sure they'll sell fine. And I'm going to put them both up into high flyer, but I guess you could argue that these should be workhorse too, really. But I actually think these ones probably do nudge it into high flyer. But hey, feel free to disagree with me on that. I won't be offended because I'm not buying either of them. I'm not that excited by them either. And finishing off the Boeings this month, we've got a blank model now. NG don't usually do blanks. This is the first time I think I've seen one from them in 400 scale anyway, and it's a 787-10, which is an odd blank to choose because there's not exactly lots of customs that you can make with a 787-10 unless you're just making fantasies. So a bit of an odd choice to put a blank 787-10 out into the market, but hey, there definitely seems to be demand. I had quite a few people at the Amsterdam Fair come up to me and asking whether the samples were for sale or whether NG would be producing blanks. So there is a demand for these, but yeah, it doesn't really thrill me, mainly because it's not a very interesting custom option, I would say. But I assume it's going to come with the windows and the cockpit, which will make it better for custom making. And yeah, I'm just going to put it in workhorse. Maybe someone's getting really excited about the opportunity to make a custom Braniff 787-10, but I doubt it. I doubt it. And that finishes off the Boeings, which leaves us only with 3 aircraft to discuss. And we've discussed all of these 20 releases so far, and none of them, I think, have been aircraft that's been seen before probably 2005, let alone, maybe the breast cancer 777. I'm not sure when that release was, but anyway, they're not classic in any meaningful way. So the next release is the only classic aircraft this month, and it's a bit of a funny choice, actually. So I've been complaining that NG don't make enough TU1.4s. They clearly don't. But they've been making a few more recently. This one's an interesting choice, though, because it's registered CCCP, or SSSR, 85000, and it's wearing the prototype colours, the pre-1970 I think it's 73, is it? I can never remember 73 or 75, but the pretty standardised Aeroflot scheme with the flag on the pole, and the flag's kind of got the wavy motif. The reason this is a bit unusual is because in their listing they call it a TU-154B, but this aircraft was never a TU-154B. It's always a TU-154 sans suffix, i.e. didn't have a suffix, it's the prototype. And their artwork shows it as a 154B. I'm not sure it ever actually looked quite like this. Now the differences are subtle between a sans suffix TU-154 and a 154B, but they do exist, and most obviously it is in the form of the antenna on top of the tail, which on a sans suffix TU-154 is a lot pointier and not as large. So it's as long, but it's a lot slimmer and more needle-like, and gives the aircraft quite a different look. Aeroclassics actually made this exact same aircraft not that long ago, and they obviously didn't bother with that difference, and it doesn't look like NG are going to either. I'm pretty sure there were also some flat differences too, but I'm not so bothered about those. So I get the feeling that this is going to be a bit of a, you know, cutting the corners kind of model. NG don't seem to be as switched on with their T154s. They still haven't exactly got their differentiation between a B and an M 100% correct, let alone making a sans suffix. So they don't seem to quite be there. So interesting, this one. It's one of the ones I'll probably get because obviously it's classic, and it certainly will be better than the Aeroclassics version, which I also own, but they don't seem to be going the extra mile here with their 154s like they have previously. I'm going to put this one into high fly because I actually don't think they're going to get this spot on. The artwork isn't showing a 154 sans suffix, and yeah, maybe I might drop them an email about this. But I don't think it'll make any difference. They're obviously not going to change the mold for a single release, so hey, it is what it is. There's still a bucket load of other T154s they could be releasing, and that's why this one seems a little bit unusual in the sense that they haven't exactly got the mold for it, but still, it'll be a high flyer. And that leaves us just with a couple of TU-214s, which is just a TU-204 built in a different factory. They're both, you know, more Russia State Transport or Russia Air Force, depending on how you want to play with the titles. And they've got these, you know, radar antenna on the top of them in different configurations. And that would be cool. Except that, again, Panda Models has been here, done that, got the t-shirt and the book already. They've even released pretty much the same regos for at least one of these. And I think I said last month, you know, how many of these bloody things are there and do we need when they could be releasing real airlines? Transaero, Vladivostok Avia, you know, these kind of like proper operators, Red Wings. But instead we're getting all these military, pseudo-military, you know, they're just boring. They're boring, especially considering the status of the Russian state and the war in the Ukraine and such. And yeah, they're not remotely interesting, and Panda's made them already. So I'm only a marginally inferior mold. So I'm going to gas guzzle these two. Really unnecessary, very annoying, and just kind of shows in a sense that NG in this case are not really in tune, I think, with the market. But yeah, not that exciting. And that's kind of, you know, in review, not very exciting is kind of what I would say about this set of releases. I mean, there's very little that's got into supersonic. There's a little bit of high flyer, but again, even that's a little bit, I'm a little bit reluctant for some of that, to be honest. And there's a lot of workhorse just re-releasing things that admittedly they'll probably do a better job than the competition, but just not very interesting. I'm not sure I'm going to go out there and say replace the Aeroclassics Giants A320 if I owned that. I wouldn't replace the Aeroclassics A330 level. If I owned it, I wouldn't replace the Batik Panda Max if I owned it, or the JC American 777. They're just not that exciting. I'm not sure I'd even replace those Phoenix BA 777s either. So really, there's a lot more that I think they could be doing here, making better, more interesting choices, and certainly, obviously, as I've droned on infinitely about, using the molds that they just don't seem interested to use to make unique models. 747 SP, Lockheed TriStars, 757s, even using their A320s and to make models and 777s, to make models that are haven't been made for a long time by anybody, or been made at the beginning of 400 scale on really old molds that need updating, because the choices here often don't need to be remade. They don't need updating. They're already quite modern and they're already pretty decent. So yeah, it seems to be getting almost worse every month in NG, and I really hope things turn around, because I'm not enamored with most of these releases, and out of this lot I'm struggling to find 3 that I'd really be interested in, let alone 4 or 5. And the irony is that Aero Classics have just announced their release. I'm looking at those going, oh wow, I'd like to get 6 of those models, or 7. But obviously the quality sometimes not there, whereas I look at this much larger release set and I'm going, I'm really struggling to find 2 or 3 that I particularly want. And often, if it came down to do I really need it, I probably don't really need a China United A319, but hey, I'd quite like to have one. But it's not as exciting as the Aero Classics or as the Phoenix releases have been recently, which is odd. So the worst molds and finishes are producing the best diversity of airliners, and the companies with perhaps the best molds are producing the least interesting. Frustrating. Anyway, that's it from me. That's it for this set of releases. I'm interested to hear what you think of these, and which ones you're keen to get hold of. I'm sure I can't speak, or I'm not speaking for the majority or all collectors. I'm sure there's lots of people who are super excited about a lot of these releases. So drop me a line, drop a comment if you are. But that's it for this time from yesterday's Airlines. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.